last week. Yes, that was last week. We got a demo from Mike. What was it? It was not the indexing step.
I forgot.
Gabor knows. What was a small thing?
Was it the SMS?
No, it was before.
Oh, the oh yeah, this display name and avatar.
Okay, today. We have demos a lot. Not many. And topics. We didn't talk about 171. Let's see if we have time for 171. Status. Status, one should be up to date. No news. I've seen some comments this morning on the PRs and issues. So on Thursday, we'll have more things to merge. Article we left there 22nd. So all this is new. New contributor, Azure.Identity 1. Azure.Identity. Active Azure as a virtual. Okay. That's I'm not familiar with this name, this package. ConsoleSmsProvider to log SMS provider, and now it's logging to anything. So it can be the console. So that's good. Okay. So now we have just to check it checks. Okay. Keep user's phone number optional. The driver for validation. Next thing is that, oh, there's a property to say if the phone number is matter. Improve navbar in TheAdmin. I saw the screenshot. It's nicer. So approved. Sort the work instances before displaying them. Oh, that's just moving it there. Still. Sorting in SQL, filtering in SQL. Sorting in SQL, but now just by this thing. Bet I know what I will say when I reach the end of this page. So order by creative UTC, order by either that. Oh, no. Okay, so I didn't say anything. It's just that there is this one now. So it's either that or that because this is the only value. Okay, I didn't say anything. Then workflows query. This is the same thing. Then again. Why? Oh, there is a big block. No, there is not a big block.
It's a second query. So you see, we have two queries. The first query tells us the workflow instances, and then the second query will pull the workflows that match the workflow IDs.
Okay.
And because it's a second query, we need to also use the same sort before we display it.
Because there is a is in. So
correct.
There is a different way to do that then. There is a session that get by ID, and you can, but if these are document IDs, then you can.
They're not document ID, they're workflow IDs. So we're querying the index to return workflow.
Okay. But if we had the IDs, then we could just get by ID, and they will be ordered because in SQL, it keeps the order when you do get by ID. There is a code that will just match the input array and ensure that the list that is returned is in the same order as the input array. Because it's an is in here, it's the in select in of SQL, so it might be an order. So that's why you have to do that, I understand. Yeah, so we don't have the database IDs from the index, that's what we said. Okay. Even though technically it's somewhere, it should be somewhere in the index because there is a foreign key. So might be a way to get these values and not have to do another select. Just another.
I think the first query returns workflow IDs, which has different document ID than the workflow document ID. It has a document ID for the relation. Yeah. So I think that's what that is.
I see. Another database. Okay.
Yep.
Not the document table. I see what you mean. That's weird. Still even more that. Well, it can still be optimal because the session has a cache, and because it's already loaded by the first query. Okay, no, it's just IDs. Okay, and then you have to load by. Okay. Okay, no, that's good. Support for multiple media. My concern here, when I first saw that, was that you are doing the descending on the result of the creative. And that would have been totally wrong. But that's twice there. Support for multiple media files in Elasticsearch. Yeah, so this is adding the content of multiple media and not overriding the previous content. So fix NotifyUserTask View. Okay. Next, ISetupEventHandler with notes. This is where Mike teach everyone what default implementation for an interface is. So this was the old interface, ISetupEventHandler, which is still the new interface. But there was one method set up ISetupEventHandler, so an event when there is a setup on a tenant. Now we have three methods, which are all async. Setup failed succeeded when a tenant is set up. And this one is marked obsolete. So the implementation is still there. We still build. But when you rebuild your Orchard project, it will tell you to use another one if you are using this interface. And if you have an implementation of this interface, it will still work because this interface comes with a default implementation for the method that it's asking for. So you don't need an abstract base class. Okay, and yeah, so that's just three different events instead of one for this event handler. Setup last tweaks. One line, two lines, it's fine. Disable warning. 4 hours. It's not 4 hours. Oh, setup async is calling setup. Until it's completely removed for the people who actually are invoking setup. Dependency.props ordering. When we do not specify placement position, content dot display files. So interesting, I was reading an article this morning. That makes me think about it, so I will share the knowledge with everyone. Why not? ULID, interleaved spec, canonical spec for ULID, which means what? Unique lexicographically sortable identifier, the S. But you see that it's unique, so sortable identifier. So unique identifier, and look at that. This is an example of an identifier. This is using 26 characters. It's removing the letters I, L, O, and U. It's exactly what Orchard Core is doing. Okay, by default, But I explain why it's taken this way. So confusing chars are in your, if you want to know why I, U, L, O are removed, I because I is too close to the L when it's in either case. So you could like the L lowercase is very close to the I uppercase. So when you read it, you could be confused. The 0 is very close to the O. That's why they are removed also, when the O is removed. The U is used to say, for instance, FU. So this way you can't have an FU in your IDs. And then you have 26 chars. And that's how it's done here. And I'm wondering, September 2018, so 5 years. So this thing is older than our code, right? Could have known about that. Same thing in the end, so that's fine. But the way it's done probably different. My implementation was much. It's done. It's like calling a grid, which gives us an integer if you will, and then I'm just converting this integer to the to fit the base 32 encoded one. So yeah, that's just a trick. Maybe this implementation really has some actual logic to generate the values here, which might be better, maybe faster also. But our speed is already big, so we are fine. So yeah, so there is a .NET implementations. Maybe you could use that. One being from the person who wrote message back, and they're very fast libraries. So only faster. Just ISO made me think about it. So you did. Maybe that's something we could look into for that. Okay, so what is the about? Do not specify placements. This one here. No placement here. But why? It's beautiful to have placement.
If you have a placement in the driver, you can't really overwrite it easily from the UI. So typically in all the parts and the field drivers, we leave that blank because that will fall back on the user settings, like the placement of the part on your content type or your placement file or your placement type defined in the UI.
And if you have no values defined and you don't have
falls back
ones,
to 5. The fallback value is 5.
But then how are they ordered after? Because they are all 5, so they are equal. What's the next discriminator? Like what makes the HTML body part before a liquid part?
Yeah, that I'm not really sure. I think it falls back on the placement of the content in the type. You know, when you attach it in the definition, there's you can put a default placement. You can define where you want it to be by default. So it defaults to that.
Nobody defines anything. New setup, new thing.
Still, the part is in the JSON object. It's in a specific space. So
if you don't have a custom part, if you have just one part, the type part, and you add 2 fields. So sorry. So these ones are parts. So yes, they would always be ordered. I see what you mean. But you mentioned in the title of the commit field part. So are there fields?
Well, even a field part, same thing, right? The fields has to be attached to a part, so they have to exist in some sort of order.
Yes, in the part,
so
within the part. But
correct.
Within the part, imagine I have a text field, a media field, an HTML field. Which one will appear at the top?
Whichever you physically place first. When
Because
you attach the fields.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So what I wanted to go was maybe in case there is no thing that defines 5 or whatever, and they are all equal, and there is no position added by a UI, maybe we could use the name at least of the thing such that it's deterministic. So I just want to prevent that when you refresh the page, then one goes down because, well, just random. The same thing as database, well, just a little bit earlier. So, but if you say the fact we attach them, we set a position, and I believe you because I think I remember how it's done. Then
yeah, in fact, those are the only drivers, for content parts that we have defined a position. Everything else we don't. Yeah, so it's just also inconsistent too.
Is it because maybe I wrote them and I like to, but this one I didn't write. This one Facebook I didn't, but these ones I probably wrote. All of them. Okay. libphonenumber-csharp. Okay. NK.update AdminCulturePicker Style. Same thing. So just this part, li. So the select is the same, it's just in one li. Okay. Date nkdocs and npm dependencies. Ooh. Someone filed an issue and we suggested that they implement a PR to replace gulp by ESP. When they said they got it working. How do we know? So package, okay, here we know the updates. Okay. That's great. Post CSS. Okay. Manual versions. So that's good. Oh, there are more things. I'm just great. Support more searchable file types in using an Elasticsearch. So might try to the PR to add support for there was just PDF before, there was no text or markdown. Now there is docx and pptx. So all these documents doesn't make sense to index an Excel file, I believe. Even PowerPoint, I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, let's search for PowerPoint files. After all, if they are there, we can index them. Let's do that. Markdown should be easy. Text is just pure loading the file. PDF, we're using PDFP. And finally, Mike found from the contributor that this library supports that and is completely open source, unlike the one that you try to use at first. So that's great. And media file under system refactoring. This string is funny because the library I just mentioned, you read by, is also made by the same creator of this string. This string slides presentation document PowerPoint text file Word new feature, or is it a new feature? Or is it the name of the module and then?
It's a new feature in the media module. So the new searchable extension will be available if you enable that feature.
Yeah, and so PDF I saw is there. And this is one is enabled by default. And this one.
And I mean, at some point, I think we should introduce a breaking change and move the PDF over.
Okay, next, yeah, it could be the next version and document it. This is an easy thing to do, to say, oh, you need to enable this feature if you upgrade to that version. Maybe.
Yeah,
or
just
we
because we have indexing, it just makes sense to have everything, either everything or none.
Let's see, maybe Jean-Thierry has an answer to that, or someone else, which is, can we in a migration have something that enables a feature? Probably. Just for that, if we upgrade from something to something, then we enable this feature because we know we are not enabling it by default anymore, and we want existing things to still work. And that will solve the problem. It could break that because it's not broken. The migration enables it, really enables it. So that would be a good thing to have. And then we could say this one is its own feature, and even split this one is its own feature.
Yeah, I mean, it would, I don't know if we have a way to determine current version, but we can put an if statement
No,
to
we
say
have.
if version.
It's current version. It's a migration. So update from whatever was the number before.
Yeah, but I don't think the migration will tell us the version, the current version being used.
It does.
Well, it does? Okay.
I mean, the current version, we don't care about the 1716, whatever. We care about the migration step version, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 7. Like update from 2, enable PDF. Create, don't enable PDF in a migration.
So it'll be a settings. So you alter the settings and then.
No. Okay.
I mean, how can you register a service using migration?
Yeah, okay. That's what I meant. Maybe there is a way to do that in a migration or something like that. Yeah, so maybe it's possible because
I mean, it's possible if you update the settings, if you update the settings and then read the settings before you register.
But after the migration, is it indeed possible that there is a predefined set of services during the migration, and then after the migration, it restarts the shell with the new services because the features have been updated? Isn't there something like that? There might be something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so Jean-Thierry is listening, so yeah, we'll see what he has to say. He will understand all the problems and all the solutions. We'll see. Or maybe we need a feature to a thing to be able to say something like not migration, but yeah, something like that. Okay, well, we get package order. Okay. Interesting. So now building with 2204. Okay, this is for documentation. Interesting.
Yeah, it was not working anymore on Docs to build.
Required. So when you updated that, they require now to set what device you want to use.
I don't exactly know, but I had to make multiple tries before finding the good configuration.
Let's see that. Okay, the docs, Python tools, let's use our values and so on. And now it's working. But I don't see any that changes after that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Typo and SDK update. All good, all the updates. Good job. The demos, please. So with 1.7, it's building. Needs to make this PR.
I think at some point before releasing 1.7, we have to release a new translation feature because there has been a lot of merges that with translations.
Main.
And I updated the POT files on the chart core.translations repository. So it should be up to date on CrowdIn and on the repository.
This was made. Well, it's up to date on CrowdIn and in the PR in repository, and because we are merging, it will be on CloudSmith.
Mhm.
Then we can take that thing.
Yeah.
Should not take long. Okay, but yeah, we had an issue with the actions, functional tests. So this failed because of the MySQL test. So I will say that everything is working. It's just a MySQL issue. It's not. It could block the. So service container MariaDB failed. Okay, so this is a problem with how we configure this functional test. One or more containers failed to start. Maybe it was a transient issue, and if we started, that might work. Let's see. The version is 352. And now it's published. So at that point, I think everything in main is mergeable to 1.7. There was no breaking changes that we accepted in main. Maybe we have issues that with 1.7. Okay, so this one. Okay, we need to do a migration. Migrate the shipping document. I think I explained it there. And Chanter is explaining what is the thing that causes the thing to be migrated. So we need to update which is a document. Still failing.
I think there is an attribute that we can use. I think one time I seen it in YesSQL that allows us to define a different namespace for where that object belongs to. Can't we just use that?
What?
But for that issue, that 1.7 issue.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how it would work. Let me see. So we moved a thing.
We moved we moved the project where it belongs to. So that changes the full name, right? Which is something we store in the database, the assembly name. But I believe there was an attribute in YesSQL that allows us to define that value.
It's not related to YesSQL. It's not YesSQL issue. It's an issue when we. Oh, I see what you mean. It's YesSQL that loads the document. But no, it's not a YesSQL thing or attribute, because YesSQL will just say, here is a JSON document, and ask JSON to say, deserialize it to this type. But the type that we deserialize to is settings, deployment, deployment step. But inside that, there is one thing that is the logging settings, and this thing doesn't exist anymore. So the thing that is inside the JSON document itself, when it's trying to deserialize to another type.
But isn't that a document from the database? It's serialized or deserializing a document from the database.
It's a sub document in the JSON. So it's not the type of the document we stored. So, for example, one second. So when you say session.save and you say new foo, okay, this will be stored in a record with namespace.foo and the JSON document. Okay, that will be stored this way in there. And I believe what you say is that, oh, we can change that thing. But the idea is that in this document, there is a property called bar that is another document, like, or logging settings. One could logging settings. Okay. And that thing here usually has a type, because it's JSON, Newton's of JSON does that, like namespace dot logging settings. Okay, and then all the properties like setting 1 value and so on, setting 2 value. And what's happening is that this type, so the thing that we stored earlier in the step that contains these properties, when it says, oh, let's try to deserialize it using this type. So this is, at that point, it's just Newton's of JSON. So we say to Newton's of JSON, yes, take this whole thing and give me a namespace foo. But internally it says, oh, this property should be using this type, but this type doesn't exist anymore. So I think that's the issue. You see, YesSQL stores one document of a type, which is still fine, but inside it has a hash table of types that needs to be deserialized, and this is the one that fails, and this is the one that we need to change. We need to change this thing here. Look at that, the dollar type. It's not add type, it's the dollar type thing. Deployment step 6. So we have an array of deployment steps. One of them has a type property as defined by Newton's of JSON. And this one doesn't exist anymore. It says could not find type, blah, 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 logging settings. So we have probably a dictionary of things in this JSON document in this step. And then when it tries to deserialize that, it fails, because somewhere in the type we have something like this. And it says, okay, I need to deserialize this set of properties to this type, but this type doesn't exist. I can't find it. So what should I do? And maybe there is an option in Newton's subject to say, hey, if you try to deserialize this type, actually use this type instead. Like you were mentioning for SQL, but it's a Newton's subject. Or we just patch the JSON document in a migration to find these types and to say, no, this type doesn't exist anymore. This is this new type. Do we have the PR that we had? Touch listing. So this is something like this in this case. You see? So this is patching the document with the correct types using SQL. So I believe this is something like this that needs to be done. So this is done. Session store configuration. Now, table. What is the table name? Document table name. So that's documents.
Wait, will that syntax a SQL? Look at that command, like 176. Will that command work on all the databases?
Yes. Yes, apparently. This is very simple, right? Update set value equals, and assuming that replace works in every database, which is totally possible. No. And everything is quoted. It's just string, so this is the same in SQL, the string is string. So yes, apparently it works everywhere.
Either that or nobody tried it on all the servers.
Probably also, or we don't have like the combination of the ones who are using search settings and this database during a migration, we don't have the issue. But I think we mentioned that during the PR. And,
I mean, there's a try catch, so it could fail and just it'll be a silent. But yeah.
And then you can change it manually, but that's very nice. So yeah, it's exactly the same thing, right? Take the documents. So I'm looking for the where, however, there is no where here. So it's doing that for every document, which is kind of weird. There is no where. We could have a where here. Oh, quoted type column name. Okay. There is a where. So to the type column name. So it's just, okay, that's exactly that, deployment plan. So it's looking at all the deployment plan because they have deployment steps. And if they have a deployment step, then says okay. So that's exactly that thing that needs to be done, but replace the old sequence type by the new one. That's exactly this code with this old namespace and name with the new namespace and name. Here in this case, it's been moved to a new search.lucene instead of lucene. Okay, so so that's what needs to be done, exactly that. Add default tasks, that's this part. Good. So this container doesn't work anymore. That crawling update's done. Function test. So we could run the function test again without the just translation. And we need to update to merge main into 1.7 over. So if I pull everything, or we can rebase 1.7 on that. That will be the. I need branches. I need to load release 1.7. What happened? Oh, it's done. I was confused. No, it's done. Okay. So read 1.7 starts from main. Okay. And I will force push read 1.7. Now we're building. All good. So this will build, and we can start functional test. Translations updated. If it's building, we can we can run functional test again, ignore the MySQL until it's fixed, and publish the translation file on NuGet. Okay. Anything else to look at?
Did you look at that issue with the performance about the memory?
No, not at all. Not at all. Looking for time to do my work. I won't merge that to 1.7 unless someone does it, but if we want to ship 1.7, or you can put it in main, doesn't hurt. But there is no reason to take it in 1.7 separate thing, so we should not try to rebuild 1.7 just because we took a change like this, which doesn't change anything in the code. In the behavior, at least.
You know, last Thursday we talked about after that demo, we talked about how the login menu wasn't extensible. Remember how, because not a shape, there's a PR there. I don't know if you want to look at it now.
Ah, you made it?
Yeah.
Ah, I look at it on Thursday. Sorry.
No, that's what I thought, but I just didn't know if you want to spend some time on it.
Oh, wait, I was about to say, oh, I saw a notification this morning that Marco shipped a new version because it's faster array. And I was about to comment that, but Hisham already updated the PR to take the new thing. It's crazy. Ah. Okay, all done. Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Wait. Let me check. I'm not sure if I have meeting on Thursday. Let me check. How do I do that? I open that. I stop sharing. I open my emails. I check my calendar. On Thursday. No, it's the week after. Okay, all good. See you on Thursday. Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Bye, man.